Let's keep things rolling now, play off of Issa's keynote. And the question is, what do you get when you fuse generative AI with AIoT? Right? Dr. Bradicich and Kevin kind of touched on that. Issa's already touched on it. And no, it's not a Slido poll. But to answer that question, I'm going to introduce to the stage Dr. Bradicich, and he's going to be moderating a panel with the founding members of this recently launched industry solution category. Join SoftServe, Intellias, ClearBlade, and SAS for an engaging session outlining the real-world opportunities associated with this transformational intersection of Gen AI and AIoT. Welcome, Dr. Bradicich and distinguished panelists.
Well, hello again. I am your moderator, and I appreciate the panel, which I'll let them introduce themselves to you, and then we'll go through some questions. And I think we're a small enough crowd where we can have a little bit of interaction, as well. So please keep that in mind. It's just a great privilege to have each one of you. And Guy, may I please ask you to just introduce yourself, and we'll go around the panel here.
Thanks, Dr. Tom. Guy Merritt. I'm our manufacturing industry success leader at SoftServe. My role is really to listen to the business needs of our clients and then work with our teams and what are the optimal solutions that we may build for them for people, process, and technologies.
Thank you. Eric?
Sure. Eric Simone, CEO of ClearBlade. We're an Internet of Things, digital twin, and edge software company. Look, my role is to hire really smart people and give them room to create and try to stay out of their way as much as possible. Keep them paid, keep them fed, keep them happy. So.
Thank you for being here. Saurabh.
Thank you, Dr. Tom. My name is Saurabh Mishra. I'm with SAS. I'm part of the Internet of Things division at SAS. My role is head of product strategy. Over the last few months, my team has been focused on this combination of generative AI and IoT quite a bit. So I'm looking forward to sharing and learning throughout this panel and afterwards.
And Volodymyr.
Volodymyr Demkev from Intellias. I am US country head from delivery side, and I work very extensively with IoT overall, from delivery and technology, connecting dots to make it work end to end. And I've seen many requests on Gen AI, how to bring it to the market. But then there's too much hype, so we want to go back a bit to the reality. What are the real cases and use cases of Gen AI, specifically with IoT and AI all together, how to blend them in a way so it produces return of investment as soon as possible.
Thank you. We do have some prepared remarks, obviously, but what are the key topics we'd like to hit on? Anyone? Well, good. That's why we're prepared to hit on. But as we, spark your imagination or prod something, please, raise your hand small enough where we can see here. As you heard earlier, and the slides that did not work that I was using, I was seeking to show the confluence of generative AI, a special kind of AI that you heard about. Secondly, AI in general, and that's being used in many ways out in the IoT with the things. Thirdly, of course, the IoT and the networking associated with it. The I, as you know, is a networking dimension of internet. And then, of course, last is OT, operational technologies, and the control systems, the industrial networks, and the sensors and the actuators that are associated with operational technology and its connection with IT, which is the compute dimension, and the storage and networking dimension. And as that's coming together, I thought about your vast experience, Guy, if I may ask you to open up. There are many applications, as you know, in industrial, in my world, in cybercrime, cyber warfare, smart homes, smart cities. The list goes on and on and on where things are in the IoT, and then how AI, and particularly generative AI, is now penetrating. Please tell us your view of, as you see the world, what are the major applications and opportunities there?
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Tom. Before I do that, though, just real quick, how many people in here are somewhat familiar with generative AI? So almost everybody raises their hand. How many of your companies today are using it in production today?
Day-to-day business. Yeah.
You see how many hands all of a sudden dropped real fast? That's what I'm seeing in the market. So when I go meet with industry leaders, and particularly in manufacturing, this is the way the conversations go. Hey, Guy, I really got to think about how we're going to use Gen AI. Well, why do we want to use Gen AI? My CEO was at a conference called IoT Slam, and he heard a bunch of guys on a panel talking about how it's going to solve world problems. So now the board and the CEO says we must have a Gen AI. I literally did this the other day. I said, okay, took my computer, give me a machine you have in your factory floor. He names the machine. I typed it into ChatGPT. I said, give me the maintenance procedures for your machine. Boom, comes up. I said, now, go tell your CEO you have Gen AI running in your factory. So, all seriousness though, that is really, and Vladimir said it, we really are in that hype cycle. You think about that proverbial hype cycle, and we're really in that. What we're working on and what we're hearing, we have to be, as industry people, we have to be the trusted advisors to help them understand what's the business outcomes we're trying to affect. Not Gen AI, not IoT, not AI just for its sake, but how do we infuse it into the day-to-day workflows that we're using to facilitate a positive business outcome? So more specifically then to the question, what are the emerging opportunities? So where I work with in manufacturing is almost universally, at least in the United States, the challenge that we're dealing with is we have an aging workforce in manufacturing, and we're not replacing it with skilled or experienced people fast enough. So now where we see a big fusion is start taking the things such as predictive maintenance that we do, and now start helping people. Not only am I going to help you predict to solve the problem, now I'm going to help you fix it, actually help guide you through that process. So what we're doing is taking the mystique out of Gen AI, using it as a tool, fusing it into those opportunities to really help labor shortages. That's one of the biggest, or inexperienced labor, that's one of the biggest areas that we see today within manufacturing.
Yeah, fascinating. You mentioned a little bit of a polarization up here, right? How many know about it? How many are using it as well? A former company of mine banned generative AI in the day-to-day business, unless it's approved in a special way application. I just completed a artificial intelligence policy for my company that we're adopting, and we have mandatory training on it. So there's a caution, and there should be. I think you'd agree with me as well. But then it's buffered by that amazing opportunity that you're talking about. Sometimes it's the sentiment of AI is a combination of Orwellian fear and Y2K fear, combined with that type of remorse of some of the people who have developed it. So this is cool. We can talk the pros and the cons with, I think we'd all agree, the warning to be cautious. So, okay. Volodymyr, appreciate you being here, and I appreciate your technical depth and understanding of this. I think it's instructive, I think you'd agree, to comprehend these type of solutions from an end-to-end architecture point of view. And with many end-to-end architectures, there's a data flow, and then there's a control flow that's included, in that. So as you think about that, what are the emerging applications you see on the end-to-end, edge-to-cloud, spectrum, which is very, very broad, and what infrastructures would comprehend IoT and AI in your world? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so a lot of time when we talk about Gen AI, you always talk it's in the cloud, because all large language model, most of the time they're available only online. But as we've seen with ML, as we've seen with AI, it started from the cloud. So to understand it's more efficient to move it to the edge. It was ML, then AI, now it's time for Gen AI. 9 months ago, one of my colleagues presented Gen AI on the edge, and back then it was not a reality, just 9 months ago. Now we have production-ready solution from a lot of companies where they run Gen AI on premises. They don't have any connectivity. A lot of this goes to the security concerns on this. So we see very quick shift and understanding of the potential on that end. So Gen AI goes from one end on the top, on the cloud, on the infrastructure, and goes all the way to the edge, and even deeper, it goes to the OT, because GenAI is very well to train on the processes. It can identify the bottlenecks in the processes and highlight them. And probably something we don't see a lot right now, but GenAI itself is a thing, because with voice models, with visual models on top, they can produce data. They can analyze, and it can be a starting point of the IoT solution as well, because especially in healthcare, when physician is talking with the patient, they need to do a lot of paperwork on their end, and with GenAI, when they record and they only select certain important parts of the conversation, what needs to go to the profile, they understand the form which needs to be filled from physician. Whenever he's done, everything is ready. It's voice-to-speech recognition, and it's not only that, it's a trained model who understands this doctor, physician, and it's already, and we saved him 80% of his workload already. Same goes with computer vision models. So GenAI is on both sides right now, and we see more and more usage, and I think most important part, how GenAI can help IoT solution at onboarding. As Guy mentioned, there's no enough people to work on. It's those systems specifically are really hard to operate in order to onboard. It's very smart move to invest in GenAI for onboarding, because it can be your knowledge holder, how it works. It can analyze manuals, it can analyze all the historic information, it can bring and it can connect the dots. And probably another good point of using GenAI, it's enriching data collected from the sensors. That's another huge part which will be very important in the development of the ecosystem for IoT, because it's, think is everywhere, even GenAI is think right now.
Can I just jump on what Vladimir said? That this is one of the big breakthroughs in my mind of why we're fusing GenAI and IoT together. We think about GenAI can take data from a human. It can take data from a text. But the exact same piece of technology now can take data from a sensor, from a machine.
From the environment.
From the environment.
The physical world.
Yeah. So think about that. In Dr. Tom's thing, at the very last two letters, the OT side. And not only can it take data from the operational technology world, it can take data from the IT world and the people all at the same time. To my knowledge, we don't have a lot of technologies that have ever done that. Mm-hmm. And then to understand it and then recreate something, it may look original, but it's really from the patterns it's learned of all that different source data it brought in. And so I just wanted to jump on that and emphasize that, because it's
the same data, it's just a matter of how you position it and how you apply the technology which is emerging. So go from the hype to real cases and apply it to solve the problems.
Now, team, why is that profound? Because there's a concept of training the machine in AI, and the machine is trained with what? Data. And the more data, you get statistical significance, and you get variety. And if data can come from other places, to your point, not simply from text and humans, not simply from a database or a data lake, but from the world.
Right.
Because out in the world, the data is older, faster, and bigger than all other types of data combined. So now we're adding that to language. Real quickly, there's a notion of large language models. Most of us are familiar with AI through generative AI and through the generation of text, pretty much. That's really the familiar consumer version of that. And to get that text, it's a large language model that is trained, and it knows every word in the language, and it can know every combination. Imagine knowing that. And you can finish everybody's sentence because you know that. Are you seeing, instead of large language models, are you seeing things like large process models or other models that are being trained?
Large voice models, large visual models, large process. It's more on the OT side. So the key is the models. Models, someone mentioned previously, the SaaS, software as a service. will be more model as a service.
Yeah, so that middle layer with LLMs, large language models, the middle one is changing to many things, and Eric's going to talk about that.
Pretty much our six senses will be replaced with different models and trained, and then not by taking our jobs, but enhancing how we work. It will be a model for electrician or model for any, like for physician in different industry. And that's required because we need to collect all this historical data, all this experience, because population is getting older. There's not enough young people right now, and we already understand.
Yeah, look around.
You can see that.
I mean, look at. By the way, you know, SAS has a gym here.
Yeah, so from that perspective, more and more need to be done automatically or more efficiently, because labor problem in the future will be the major factor what can be done with the technology.
Let me go to Eric, if I may, because I'm not sure you're going to use this term, but is there a large twin model? But Eric, you do a lot of work with digital twins, and it's an exciting concept that has predated this enamoriness and predated the intoxication that we have today with AI.
Yeah.
But yet you're fusing it. Your team is fusing it together. And tell us about that. Yeah.
Well, so we're a bunch of technologists, so the first barrier we have is we love to talk about things like IoT and edge compute and digital twins. The reality is the world doesn't care about those things unless they drive a solution, right?
Yeah.
And so we've evolved into this over the last decade plus, right? So we were very enamored with building Internet of Things software, and we luckily had vision around edge, saying, hey, look, this is going to the pendulum's going to swing back to local compute. So let's build software for that, and then we've been doing a lot with AI and digital twins. As we started to see how our customers were using our products, and we started to realize what was slowing them down, we really invested heavily in this idea of let's allow normal non-computer scientists create operational digital twins that are connected. We've debated this word a bit, by the way, because the digital twin
define it too, if you would, for the audience. Yeah.
Oh gosh, so our definition. So digital twin is a very broad definition of a virtual replica of a physical device.
Yeah, and a model, a replica that's in the computer.
Yes, and we call it an intelligent asset. And we do that for a reason, because the world of digital twins for the last 20, 30, 40 years has really been more, I think, a scientific kind of experiment. And they've been real, but they're not connected. They're not operational digital twins. And so in our world, our customers are wanting not to have a complete model of the entire physical aspects of a device. They want to know certain attributes. I want to know its vibration. I want to know its heat. I want to know its location. I want to know its fuel level, right? And so we say, look, let's give you software that allows the operator, right? The OT person, the person in the field, the railroad operator, the oil driller, the agricultural scientist. Let's let you manipulate the software in a way that doesn't require you to drop into code.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we invested heavily in that several years ago, and that's our Intelligent Assets product. And then along comes Gen AI, right? And of course, I smile at our CTO, Aaron, because the second that Gen AI hits, of course.
Right here.
Where is he?
So Aaron always gets these calls from me. He's like, you know, CEO, we've got to build Gen AI, and he's like, I don't know what that means. I'm like, well, think about it. So hang on. This is back in the day when you had phones like this.
You said
my age, by the way.
You slam the phone.
Yeah. Ding. I walk out of my lime-colored kitchen because it's 1974. So Aaron has to deal with me, and he's been doing this for over a decade. But what I love about our team is, like, we'll go back and start to say, let's not just use technology for technology's sake. Let's put it into real world terms. How can I use this to make my customer's life easier?
Right.
And they came back with, hey, look, we think we can, like you said, Vladimir, and also you said it too, it's this multimodal interface. Instead of needing an operator to click around our software product, they can now type in text to say, I want to create 32 new Zambonis. And I want those Zambonis to tell me their location, their fuel level, their oil level, and their pressure, whatever, right, tire pressure. And it will go into the software and actually create those digital assets. That looks like magic to me, right?
Yeah.
But it's because we leverage the power of Gen AI to say, let's create a more natural human-to-machine interface to make it easier for people in the field to operate this stuff and do what they want to do. So that's where we see the value, is making a more natural interface for the end user to work with the
Eventually, you
computer.
could use these, if I may add, for data generation as well, right?
Of course.
You could actually generate data that could become the foundation for the next model.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot more that we can do by ingesting, just think the manuals for the equipment, right? Let's go further than just creating it digitally. Let's actually physically connect to the device, because now I know how it communicates. It's Modbus, it's CAN bus, it's blah, blah, right? And now, instead of needing a bunch of engineers to go out in the field and do this, it automatically happens, right? That's why this Gen AI stuff is so exciting. But it's at the end of the day, it's computer science and it's math, and it does things for you automatically.
Yeah.
So if we're fusing these concepts together, Eric, what I heard you say is a digital twin is an asset, model of something. It's many times a model of a thing.
Yep.
And that thing is many times smart, right, as well. So you can have now Gen AI coming in and creating these digital twins, which are models of things in the IoT. So now we've tying this together. And the more we can understand that, the more we can leverage, the value and the confluence, of that as well. Yeah, very cool. Saurabh, you are next with the predetermined question.
That's where the preparation helps, right? So the predetermined
Since you already
question,
know it, I don't have to waste time asking it. You go right ahead and answer it. Yeah.
that's fine. So, I think we started to kind of touch upon that theme, right? I think about Gen AIoT, it's such a potent combination. And I wanted to just unpack it just for a minute, right? At the foundation layer, we have IoT, right? And IoT is all about connectivity and instrumentation. And that's when we get access to raw data, the measurements. And you could do some with it. You could visualize it. You could create some monitoring rules on it. But that's where the power of AI comes in. And that's when we got into analytics for IoT. And now you have this data coming at you fast and furious across thousands of assets. And you could probably no longer just monitor it with some simple rules. And AI allows you to kind of manage processing against data and creates insights that we can work with. Now, what's happening in some of these environments which are using it, there's a lot of dashboards, right? We've all heard about death by PowerPoint. I think there's such a thing called death by dashboard, too, right? So you have these, they look cool, right? You have the 8 monitors with all these dashboards. I don't know how somebody is really making sense of it, right? So we need to get to the next level, and the next level is engagement, which is where generative AI comes in, right? And I think we touched upon it, because now we are putting the power in the hand of the operator, the SME, who's like, I don't necessarily need to look at all the 8 dashboards to start with. I just need to ask a question and get a response in my language, based on my manuals, based on my procedures. And then if I need, I want to have the option to kind of bring up the dashboard. So that engagement is what's been missing. And this is, the combination really brings it all together. And that's why I feel so excited about it.
An important part of this is, so like on Dyn with dashboards. Dashboards were around 50, 60 years, very long time. There was a certain point of time a dynamic dashboards, so you're trying to make it more flexible or configurable in a way. Now the challenge is on the design side, how to design it. It's chat format right now, but it's just a starting point. It will be more important next step. Because chat is very limited. Now with the addition with voice, with ChatGPT 4.0, it's extending it. But I think the combination of digital twin, because it's great for not only to connect but visualization part, you can see much bigger picture, and then how you collect the data, and generative AI, not only from the large language model, but how they generate visuals, how they represent the data based on the input. Is it through the you type in or you're talking to to the model, and then how to represent it in the way so you see the highlighted data where is the problem, there's anomalies, or there's predictive maintenance in different combination based on the specific domain. So this part is missing, as I see right now, and it's very crucial to work on this design, trying to design new ways to represent the data, because there's tons of data, dashboards doesn't solve. You go to Power BI, you have report, and then you spend a couple of weeks to make sense out of it. We still, on that sense, and I think Gen AI in this perspective will be a huge benefit for everyone, but it's just a matter of, come up with
that couple
the
of
design.
weeks is a problem, right? Because a lot of this IoT data loses its value really fast.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you really don't have the time to kind of absorb everything.
Yeah, you can't watch all those dashboards. You need to just be alerted to anomalies.
Right.
I love what the last presenter put up. He said the hottest new programming language is English. I think that tells that tells everything, because now we're going to just talk to these devices, to these things, and they're going to someday respond in the way that we want them to, right?
Yes.
My home is actually going to be smart. I'm hoping someday, because how many people have tried to do the smart home stuff with the lights and your TV, and it works for like a week or a month or a couple of months, and then it all degrades, and they're like, forget it, I've got to go program 18 things. Well, we want to be in a world like Star Trek, right? Where I say, hey, I want to watch Peaky Blinders and, make me some mac and cheese, and stuff just happens. That eventually, we'll get there, but when, it's going to take a while. But now we're going to interact with our world in a way that's much more natural than what we've been used to for the last several years.
I think you're right.
Yeah, talk about English. Yeah, I'm originally from the other side of the world. There was English not the main language, so it's not only English. Being able to speak any language will allow to do the same, because it's not a blocker anymore.
Exactly, yeah.
If only we had an app for every possible thing we bought. And we could connect it,
Yeah.
So I was going to
Guy.
build, sorry, Dr. Tom, I was going to build on what Eric was saying, that we think about this evolution of data, and we think about how we got here with this new term and this new solution we're thinking. So I predominantly work with manufacturers. In early days, 10 years ago, it was all about IoT. Hook up to the machines, get the machines, hook it up, and I can start getting insights. I can build dashboards. Okay, we did that. And then it's like, gosh, I got all this data. Hey, why don't I start predicting failures of these machines? So now I took my IoT. Now I'm going to put AI on top of it, machine learning algorithms, and now I'm predicting. And we've been doing that for a long time. Now we're seeing this turnover, this people shortage problem. Now this is the complaints we get. Hey, guy, it's great. You're telling me my machine's going to fail in 2 weeks. The problem is I don't have anybody on staff that knows how to fix that machine from 20 years ago. And it's like, uh-oh, now we got another crisis. So then we evolve yet again, and that's where the Gen AI now comes in. So I'm actually, because now the Gen AI, it understands what the problem is. And now it understands, and I can use a technique, and we talk about the large language models, but by themselves, they're not useful in the pure enterprise. You have to have your private data.
Yeah.
Right.
And that you have to introduce this other component, not to get too far in the bits and bytes, but something we call RAG, retrieval augmented generation. And that allows you to get your private data and work in concert with your large language model. And so now what I can do is that machine's predicted to fail. I have an inexperienced person, but my Gen AI goes out and it gets the manual and it knows the troubleshooting and how to replace that part through the natural language process that Eric was talking about. It just by, how do I change the oil pressure or the filter? It goes out, gets it, and puts it in.
Yeah.
Now look what we did with a closed loop system. I went from an IoT base to collect data with artificial intelligence to help me make predictions, and now I can augment the human to help guide them of how to actually fix it. And then whatever they did, I feed that back in and I learn again. That's the real evolution. That's what that new logo means to me.
So RAG is like my favorite 3-letter acronym these days, right? I'm sure, Guy, it's for you as well.
Yep.
Because, I mean, if you think about LLMs are frozen in time in terms of the data that they were trained on. So unless you're able to bring your domain data, your context, you really cannot develop enterprise applications with it.
Right.
I have to say, being in the cybercrime business, it already has your private data.
Well,
I don't
to
know
your
if you got
point,
that, right.
no, well, to your point though, look, you always got to be cautious of everything, and there has been some studies have already been done using some of what, when you use the public LLMs in combination with RAG, people have said, oh, you don't have to worry about it. Your data is your data. It's not always accurate because some studies have shown that private data you pumped up into the LLM, it got trained into it.
And now it's part of the LLM. If you understand how the LLMs work, or any machine that you're training, it's taking in data, and if it is yours, how do you untrain it? Like, how do you unsee something? How do you unlearn something? Right?
Yep, and that's why we talk about walled gardens, and there's a whole set of methodologies of how to protect that data, especially when you start fusing.
It's hard to.
It's really, really hard.
And you know, we're on the security point. I mean, how many times have you wanted to unlearn something or tell somebody something? So you got to forget that, you know, as well. And but it's stuck. It's stuck.
Like
there.
every day?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's hope this panel isn't part of that. But well, Lodimir, you wanted to say something. I think I saw your hand go up.
There was old joke back then on IoT that there's no S of security.
Yeah.
And there's GenAIoT, there's no security as well defined. That's the problem which we see. You already touched how you use your private data, how it's going to trained model, a publicly trained model. So there's huge part of missing governance and regulations how to do this. I think it will be a huge part. And as we open in a lot of possibilities with Gen AI for good, there will be even more for bad. Especially to Dr. Tom, as you're fighting cybercrime. On your side, I think it's super important to talk about security, because if you give all the power to Gen AI to do a good thing, the same will be possible to do the bad thing, especially touching critical infrastructure, hospitals and so on. So security component, that's something we need to address as a community, for sure, pushing for governance, pushing for regulation and standardization, because it's one thing, it's right now we are just scratching the surface of Gen AI potential, and it's most of the time it's in the cloud, and we even Guy asked people who are using it in production, much less hands because there's a risk. And moving forward, it will be more going to the OT, operational. If we allow Gen AI to not only listen but control, that's completely different.
That's a very important point. He already said not just listen and may use your data, but start to control things. Remember where we are, the IoT community, as well. This is worth repeating. You may choose not to use AI, but you cannot choose not to have AI used on you. And you have to be careful of that. That's what we're getting into in this panel discussion a little bit as well. Also, note this. If the thing is smart, it is a security vulnerability. Why is that? Because making it smart creates a computer stack, if you will, a software stack with an operating system and drivers and a NIC, a network interface chip. That's what makes something smart, because it can be connected and it can do some computing. Therefore, the cyber criminals know how to do the attacks on the IT endpoints, such as PCs, laptops, cell phones, because they're fundamentally computer systems, and there's an understanding of that. When we impute that smartness of a computer system onto a toothbrush, an electric toothbrush that can be hacked, or a thermometer that can be hacked, or a camera that can be hacked, or all the things in the world, your dishwasher. How many of you hooked up your refrigerator to your phone so that you can see if it's empty or tell the temperature? Well, now you've created a security vulnerability. So in the security world, the attack surface is growing very quickly to things in the IoT, the attack surface, as well. And there's 3 reasons for it. And one of them I mentioned is proficiency. The things are getting smarter, and therefore the criminals are saying, well, you might have locked down your PCs here at SAS. You've locked down your desktops and your laptop. But now I can go through a camera or a microphone or an actuator as well. The second one is the preponderance of them, right? There's so many of them, the statistics to hit.
Yep.
And then third is the peculiarity. What do I mean by that? Well, when somebody builds a smart thing, they're not necessarily thinking security first, right? And this is not an IQ statement. This is just the dimension of the domain.
But adding on to that,
Please do.
Like you guys know, I work in manufacturing. 70% of American manufacturers are not cloud connected today. The number one priority on a global perspective for factories today is to do what? To connect to the cloud.
That sounds like a security vulnerability.
Guess what? The very last item our data shows that they're most is on that priority list.
Go ahead.
OT security.
OT security, not IT.
Not IT, OT. That's the operational equipment.
Conveyor belts, robotic arms.
And so we got away with, as an industry, forever of being disconnected. It was too hard for the bad actors to get into this. Now we're connecting it. And the peculiarity issue is also has always been a big barrier. It's like nobody knows how to do ladder logic programming in an Allen Bradley PLC from 10 years ago.
That's all OT speak.
That's all. Yeah. But see, but my point is, but now if you have your Gen AI, now you know it. And once I connect it, anybody now can use Gen AI, weaponize it against your IT systems. And you're right, we need to wrap the S around this, because we talk about cyber in the IT world. Hey, look, you might lose your data, you might lose some money, you might lose your identity. In the OT world where we play, you could lose your life.
You could control a ship to crash into a bridge, for example.
Yep.
I mean, you know what I'm talking about? Right?
Yeah.
So that's called wielding, right? You wield the thing to do it. It's, a robot arm to slap you in the head or whatever the case may be, right, by control.
So
I want to let you go first. You go ahead.
No, I was just going to bring another challenge, right? I mean, security obviously is a common theme. As we build the stack, and you talked about as things become smarter, they are by design more capable. So if somebody got control, they could do bad things. There's another challenge that at least we are seeing from a generative AI, IoT perspective. When we were building from IoT to analytics for IoT, we were talking about numbers. We were dealing with numbers primarily, right? And we're talking about sensor data, we're talking about readings and measurements, and these are numbers. So our math was really good on the numbers.
Yeah.
Generative AI is primarily textual data right now, right? It's unstructured. I mean, you're bringing other modalities to it, but it's primarily textual right now. And text and numbers don't mesh very well in some cases, right? So this is a real challenge that we are seeing, that you could think about ChatGPT and you could just go ask a question. It's all text, right? And that works for you as a consumer. You could ask a question, get a response. But if you are trying to get any enterprise adoption, you have numbers in your systems, and you need to find a way to fuse numbers and text together. That's why generative AI is just part of the stack. It's not the stack in itself, right? So you still need your existing systems, your existing machine learning that you have, and layer generative AI on top of it. So I just want to call that out, because a lot of people are thinking about generative AI as the silver bullet, but it works in conjunction, in addition to the existing stack.
100%. I don't even talk about Gen AI as a standalone system. It doesn't work well enough for the enterprise. It must be fused into a workflow, an application with other pieces, because it doesn't do everything.
Right.
It won't calculate a spreadsheet for you.
If you've got a framework for it to apply to, then you have something
Today.
you can automate. I'll say one thing. Notice I got real quiet when we talk about security, because we work in a lot of really secure environments. So we do a lot in transportation, Class 1 rail. We do a lot in oil and gas, energy.
Yeah.
And so I like to not say much, because it's such a concern for us. But one of the things that we provide and really work for with our customers is to give them that flexibility of how they implement a solution, right? So let me put it behind my private firewalls, right? Let me put it on the edge. Let me secure it in the ways that we're used to. And then those companies are comfortable with saying, okay, I can control this, because security is of the utmost concern in a number of things. Public safety is another one, right? So leveraging these technologies, but very carefully and very slowly, in a way that doesn't upset the safety of their systems. So that's critical. And I like to think as we evolve in this world of AI and Gen AI, we can start to use the technologies to protect ourselves as well, right? And there's always going to be a constant race.
Eric, on that point, non-conventional military attacks by nation states, as it's called, is a corollary to cyber crime, where there's extortion and identity theft and data exfiltration, ransomware. But what would happen if the enemy could take out the utilities, the water supply, and the electric supply? Would bombs and guns be needed to destroy a society? Think of it that way. And that's what's happening. Yeah, that's what you're alluding to, or directly.
Well, when you mentioned critical infrastructure, I kind of went...
Critical infrastructure.
Exactly it. And
how do we protect that?
Create intelligent infrastructure.
Because it's loaded with things, IoT, yeah.
Right. But we've got to do it in a very thoughtful way, and we've got to do it in a very measured way. We can't just go crazy with Gen AI and say, hey, let's just light all this stuff up.
Quick story. There's a thermometer in a fish aquarium, in the lobby of a casino. And the cyber criminals were able to use that smart thermometer because it was hooked up to the Wi-Fi, which means it's hooked up to the internet, which means it's connected in some circuitous way to their data. And the criminal was able to, through that thermometer, exfiltrate or take data, from the casino as well. Just a quick story on that's a thing. That thermometer is a thing. It's an Internet of Thing. It's connected effectively, to the network, as well. As we talk about some of the more darker sides and the security issues, as well. What can we do? What do you think we can do? I'll open it up to the panel.
Stop putting fish tanks in casinos.
Stay off the internet, be poor, and have a low credit rating, and you probably won't get hit personally, right?
Stay off the internet is, we might joke, but I think that is part of the solution here, right? That's where edge or localized on-prem processing could be extremely critical in some ways, right? You don't have to open entire infrastructure to the internet. So that's, I think, part of the solution. It's not the solution itself.
I think there's adaptive network stuff that's starting to go on where we can start to apply some of these AI principles and actually have private protocols. I've been doing a lot of reading, right? I'm not a practitioner, but I have to give a speech later, so I have to say
it
something
sounds like
interesting.
You know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Aaron is very good.
That's half of the battle, right? But when you start to think about these things and say, how can we use technology to protect ourselves, that's always a race, right? You've got to stay one step ahead of the bear if you're carrying honey, right? So,
right.
Or one step ahead of the guy slower than you, because they'll go after that honey pot before yours. But staying ahead and being conscious of it, I think the first thing we can do, the thing that will make the most impact, is be aware of security and focus on it as not as an afterthought, as part of the solution.
Oh, to jump on that bandwagon, we think of security, almost 9 times out of 10 people think IT.
Yeah.
We don't have the awareness at the OT layer, at the thing layer down here.
That's the huge opportunity, and it's the target. It's the emerging attack surface because it's been...
It's the human side. This was a true story. I was in a factory. I asked about all this. They had an operational network. All the machines are connected. I said, what are you guys doing for your security? And they said, oh, we don't have to worry about it. We're an air-gapped factory, which means they said they're not connected. And I said, okay, well, I'm curious. I'm looking at your network, and I see a cellular modem plugged in right there.
Right, yeah.
In your factory. They said, oh, that's so the engineers working at home, they can I was going to say dial in. They can get into the system and reprogram some machines. I go, when was the work done? 2 weeks ago. Why is it still there? Yeah. Well, he's monitoring.
It's a security vulnerability.
Yeah. And they've opened up this whole factory, and it has all the data is unencrypted, running, and they just put a big pipe sitting there.
Hey, Guy, we're at the 2-minute warning.
Oh.
Well.
Therefore, Volodymyr, what's their last word to us?
The guys already mentioned, it starts from awareness, understanding the problem, that it exists. It's a huge elephant in the room, and we need to start slicing it a smaller chance to eat it all together.
Thank you. Saurabh?
So I just want to touch upon another dimension that we haven't really talked about, trustworthiness, right? We were asking about an interface where you ask questions and get responses. How do you know those responses are correct, right? We talked about patterns like RAG could help, but being able to make it transparent that although I'm giving you a response,
Hallucination, it's called.
hallucination is one aspect of it, but kind of transparency is another aspect of it. I'm giving you a response. It looks like an English response, but it's based on your operating procedures. Here is where I picked it up from. So just kind of making it transparent increases the trustworthiness aspect, which will also impact the adoption aspect of it.
Thank you. Eric, your last word.
Gen AI, let's use it to make things easier and more natural to work with, and let's do it in a responsible way as we go down this path. There's a lot of hype, but let's get to real.
Got 10 seconds. Your last word.
Don't trust any single company say they can do it by themselves.
Good advice.
It takes an ecosystem to help protect and deliver the applications you need. It's too big to entrust with a single company.
Okay, let me use my last word to say this. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your contributions and your commitment to safety and security as AI emerges everywhere in IoT. This Sunday is what? Coming up.
Father's Day.
US
Father's
Open.
Day. How many here are fathers?
US Open.
How many here have had or have a father? Everyone as well. Let me leave you with this.
I'm Gen AI.
Usually, the only man who's happy when you do something better than him is your father. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right.